It's time to change. If you like country, we play it. If you like pop, we play it. If you like Latin music, we play it. If you like rock and roll, we play it. Because no one does fusion music like we do. 91.1 FM, The Boss.
Programs presented are submitted by members of our community and are a proud sponsor of KNLY 91.1 FM. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect those of KNLY 91.1 FM, The Boss, and affiliates.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Superhuman with Dr. V and Jason Phelps. I am all alone in the studio. Well, Carlos is here with me. Jason is off this week, and we'll be back next week. Really exciting show today, guys. Have a good friend of mine, Dr. Jaime Seeman, on as our guest. She's an OB-GYN, and she hosts her own show, Dr. Fit and Fabulous. She recently competed, and I really want to talk to her about this because we watched it, and it was awesome. She recently competed on this season's Titan Games with The Rock and did awesome. And just really wanted to talk to her today about women's health and wellness, the dietary and exercise and activity approach she uses, with her patients, with her female patients. She's not your typical doc. And you'll kind of see that, but we just want to kind of go over a whole bunch of questions with her. So, Dr. Jaime, you there?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Hey, there you. Awesome. We made it.
We're here.
I was stressed. I was running around. I had a surgery this morning, then ran back and saw patients at the clinic, and then we were texting back and forth, and was glad you got to get through your crazy clinic and make it on.
Sounds like my day too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this is our time to kind of just relax and have a conversation. We really, resonate as far as our belief systems of, I personally believe, food, number one, food is medicine, period. I don't care what medications we give patients. They're definitely obviously indicated, right? But it doesn't matter what medications we put somebody on if their diet's terrible, they're eating a ton of sugar, they're not having regular exercise or activity, they sleep terrible, So real quick, just tell everybody kind of about your practice, where you're at, a little bit about your show, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. So
Yes.
I am a board certified obstetrician and gynecologist, and I'm in private practice. So I practice in Omaha, Nebraska at Mid-City OB-GYN, and we see patients at 2 locations. So that's my full-time job. I'm in clinic 4 days a week but do surgery and deliver babies really 365 days a year because we deliver our own patients. But I am also finishing my fellowship in integrative medicine.
Awesome.
And before I ever became a doctor, I was a collegiate athlete. I played softball for the Cornhuskers. So go Big Red if there's any Husker fans out there listening. But when I was at the university, I got a degree in nutrition and exercise science. So when I went to medical school, my background was much different than a lot of my colleagues who, studied biochemistry and a lot of the more basic sciences. And so, I left medical school and I had my first daughter. I had my first pregnancy in medical school. And then I had my second 2 daughters in residency. So I have 3 daughters. They're very soon to be turning 5, 7, and 9. And after medical school and residency, my health kind of caught up with me. And I ended up being diagnosed with prediabetes and hypothyroidism. I failed all my glucose testing and all my pregnancies. I was like everything that I would tell my patients to not be. But from the outside, if anybody would look at me from the outside, I mean, I looked athletic. I didn't really look unhealthy. I was not obese. So I think I was kind of really a testament to, you don't know what's going on inside your body unless you test, unless you find out.
Can't
and
hack
so
what you
here
don't
I was,
track.
I almost just kind of felt like an imposter. I had all these reversible, preventable health conditions. And I had a huge tragedy that happened in my life. I lost one of my best friends. And about 5 years ago, I really just set out kind of on a personal journey to fix my own health. And I ended up adopting a low carb ketogenic diet, and it really started to change the way I looked at my medical practice. I'm like, I think we have this wrong. I had a nutrition degree. I understood nutrition a lot more. And I just started to look at the data and look at the literature. And I'm like, I don't think we're doing any of these patients, a service here. I think that we could change so many things with lifestyle and diet and exercise and sleep and all the things that you mentioned, when we started today. And I kind of call those things the 5 pillars of health, which are nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, and environment. And I've completely revamped the way I practice medicine. It's a much more functional preventative approach, which is also unique being an OBGYN. And I've never looked back. My life and my health is in the best place it's really ever been.
Awesome. As evidenced by you being on the Titan Games this season. So real quick,
Yes.
how what was that like?
It was incredible. So the story goes, I was in the operating room last year and a scrub technician said, I think you should go on that Titan Game show. And I had no clue what she was talking about. It was season 1 premiered last year, and I had to go look it up online. And I thought, this looks like American Gladiators from when I was a young girl. I'm like, that looks pretty badass. So I looked up what it took to apply for the show. You had to make a video and do a couple physical tasks kind of in real time. And I really started to have self-doubt. I mean, it had been 13 years since I had competed in college, and I had really only been back in the gym lifting weights for about a year and a half at that point. And I was like, I can't do that. There's no way I can do that. But I kind of was following the show, and when The Rock put out a video looking for contestants for season 2, it was just like gnawing away at my brain. Like, you got to try this. Like, what if you don't make it, nobody will know. Yeah. So I ended up submitting an application, and fast forward a couple months later, around Christmas time, I found out I was invited out to a combine. So you actually have to physically go try out in front of The Rock and his team and NBC executives. And they invite like 100 people out to Los Angeles, and they told us they were only going to pick 18 men and 18 women. So you're totally humbled when you get there, because these people are like the best of the best. I mean, they're all strong, they're all fast, they all have these amazing stories, and they come from all walks of life and all professions. And I found out a couple days after the combine, I was selected to be on the show. So things kind of happened in rapid succession. A lot of people are like, how did you train? I'm like, well, I don't know. How would you train if you had 2 weeks notice? And these challenges that they put you through, I mean, these are not real everyday things. So I just I don't know how. I mean, you basically have to just be an all-around athlete. I mean, you can't be just strong, you can't be just fast, you got to be everything. So we went out to filming. I lived in a hotel room for 26 days while I had to leave my medical practice, uproot my children, pull them out of school. It was but it was worth it. I mean, I guess when The Rock says, do you want to come compete on Titan Games, there's only one answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so what specifically did you, I mean, I know you said you got asked that question, but did you do any kind of specific functional fitness training, or was it just your overall, general fitness at that time that you brought in?
Yeah, so how I normally train is I do resistance training, a couple times a week, and then I do high intensity interval training. Like, I don't do cardio, I basically do HIIT and weights. And applying for the show, obviously I knew there was a chance, that I could be on it. And so I just watching season 1, I knew they had to pull heavy things across the ground. So I started doing more sled work, and, sled sprints. I did a lot of sledgehammer work because I knew they made them crack things open with sledgehammers. What I did not anticipate is they really changed it this year a lot. There was a lot more climbing in this year's events, a little more kind of, I don't know, what I would call like Ninja Warrior flair to some of the events, which I don't think any of us really anticipated. And they, changed Mount Olympus. So it was kind of hard to anticipate. But then once I found out I was like really on the show, being only 2 weeks out, you're thinking, okay, like don't get injured. You gotta be prepared and rest appropriately as well going into these competitions. So it was kind of hard, really, juggling it all. And meanwhile, I was still working a full-time job and had 3 kids and this side business. So it was quite
my kids had originally told me, watching season 1, we watched it all together. And they said, you should do that, Dad. You should do it. Well, I was right in the middle of my doctorate program. I was right in the middle of the second year and finishing out all the research and compiling all the data and working with a statistician and doing all that. So, my doctorate ended up being on ketogenic diet as first-line therapy for type 2 diabetes. I'm getting a ton of these patients. About 50% of the patients coming in to see me over 40. They all have some type of prediabetes, some type of insulin resistance, some type of, or full-blown type 2 diabetes. In your practice, I'm super excited to hear, because I think that to treat chronic disease the way we know it, because everything's chronic now, right? Medicine is still on an acute care model, right? So surgically, you'll appreciate that. So surgical, it scratches my itch for see a problem, fix it, right? But medicine is still based on that acute care model. In other words, let's give it a name, give it a drug, give it a name, give it a drug. And just like you, people like Dr. Jason Fung, all these people that they see, hey, my patients aren't getting better. Like myself, our patients aren't getting better. They just continue to have high blood pressure. They continue to have, because we don't treat the root cause. So I'm really excited to hear that you're going to be doing a functional medicine approach, I think, to really tackle chronic disease moving forward, and the enormous fiscal issue that it's going to cause in our country. We have to approach it from a root cause and root cause approach. Now, specifically, I believe food is medicine, period. Everything begins and ends with the food. And if we don't put good fuel in the body, that's a starting point for mental health, for performance, for everything. Now, as far as on your, you mentioned the ketogenic diet and you had done that for yourself. Now, what do you do specifically? A patient comes in, say an initial consult, do you talk to them immediately about what is your approach when they come in? Do you talk about the diet?
You bring up, just some, great points, because our medical system, you're right. It's designed for, pathology, identify the pathology, and here's a medicine that can fix it. And it's not set up, clinically to even, have the time. The time it takes to educate patients and to talk about them. If I want to I'm in private practice, I want to keep these doors open. Like I got to see a certain number of patients per day. And that's just the business of it. That's the unfortunate part is medicine is a business as well. So the way that I treat patients is, and I'm lucky because I get to treat women at a younger age than most, primary care docs are seeing these people when they're already, they already have type 2 diabetes. What I'm seeing in my practice, what I like to call like pre-diabetes, patients come in, I talk to them about their diet, what are their problems? And then we check labs, we check their fasting insulin and C-peptide and glucose. And I'm able to identify a lot of patients who have early signs of hyperinsulinemia, because these are important things to know for a woman that's about to go into a pregnancy. These are things I wish I would have known, going into a pregnancy, because pregnancy is one of the greatest physiologic tests of a woman's, body. And if you are going to have, diabetes or high blood pressure, a lot of times these problems are going to pop up in your pregnancy. And so we try to identify them before a woman gets pregnant, because the ability to impact health long-term, when you look at epigenetic influences and some of the studies on nutrition in pregnancy, I have, pretty profound impact if I can change that before these women get pregnant and have the babies and then develop type 2 diabetes. So I just feel, super privileged to be taking care of these younger women and making an impact earlier in their lives. But yes, every single one of my patients, whether it's a new consult or whether it's an annual exam, I say, tell me what your diet's like. Tell me what you ate in the last 24 hours. What type of movement do you do? How do you sleep? What time do you go to sleep? How many hours do you get? We look at stressors in their life. What's their job like? What's their marriage like? All of these things have an impact on their hormones, on the way their circadian rhythm works, what they're putting in their body. It really is totally an underutilized, piece of the puzzle in medicine.
Absolutely. And that was my fear initially starting my practice, because I do I go regular insurance model where I see 15, have 15, 20 minutes to spend with a patient initially? Me personally, I can't get through everything I need to get through that's going to make the biggest impact in 15 to 20 minutes. I would literally leave the room, when I was, in training, and the patient was still looking at me like, I still have other stuff to tell you, That's why I made the hard decision to have a cash-based clinic, and it's paid off in the long run, but I get to spend an hour at my initial consult with them. I could discuss diet and things like that, and you can easily do like in your practice, like you're saying, I'm sure you have support staff and adjunct staff that helps with all that. But again, if you came at medicine from a different aspect, from a different route. In other words, you already had the nutrition training that everybody, we're learning now is a very important, or probably the most important component in medicine. And it's completely lacking. It's completely lacking. Somebody comes in with, high cholesterol, what do we do? Statin, but if they don't change their eating habits, if they don't change the sugar, the processed carbohydrates, any of the junk that they're eating, it's not going to make an impact. Their numbers may improve a little bit, but their health doesn't improve, right? So going back, where do you stand as far as, because there's a lot of controversy, not controversy, with ketogenic diet in women and women's hormones, because you'll hear people say, oh, that it does this, it lowers thyroid, it does, so what do you recommend as far as diet? Is it patient specific, meaning like diagnosis specific? Because we know for a fact it's indisputable. PCOS, endometriosis, uterine fibroids, things like that. Ketosis and ketogenic diet does really, really well, for those states. But do you generally recommend it to your general patients, or do you do it on a case-by-case basis, or how does that work?
Yeah, so everything's always individualized to the patient. So, there are certainly reasons that patients might need therapeutic, ketosis. I got my board certification this last year. I'm a board certified ketogenic nutrition specialist. But it's patient specific. Let's look, do you have insulin resistance?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you need to limit carbohydrates in your diet? I do think there's patients that have good insulin sensitivity and can tolerate a lot more, whole food carbs, and maybe more of a paleo approach is more appropriate for that patient.
Agreed.
Women 100% are different than men.
Yep.
I mean, and
Yep.
I try to remind women that, women are very complex biological creatures. And when we look at the approach to women, in a woman who's in her reproductive years, her body is at any given moment, these nutrient sensing pathways are basically saying, is this a good time to conceive? Is this a good time to create another human life? And so anything that's, real extreme or interpreted as a stress on the body, we're going to see hormonal dysregulation. We're going to see menstrual, dysregulation. And so that's the thing that we have to balance with women. And, there are some that it's very straightforward. You have insulin resistance, you have prediabetes, whatever it is, like you clearly need a low carb or, ketogenic approach. For somebody that has good insulin sensitivity, it's probably not advantageous to restrict carbs to less than 25 per day. We can see changes in leptin sensitivity, changes in progesterone production. So, I find that it sometimes is a little bit of trial and error, with some patients, but I think that's the hard part for women is there's so much information out there and they don't know where to turn. And their friend Sally down the street had so much success and she's not. And, we like to play the comparison game. So I tell patients, I'm like, listen, let's do the testing. You need to be your own expert here. Let's let's find what works. We might have to try a few different things, but overall, 88% of the patients that are walking through the door of my clinic have abnormal metabolic markers.
Mm-hmm.
So for the vast majority of my patients, reducing refined flours and sugars and vegetable oils, is where we need to start, just on a basic level. But
you just nailed it with that 88%, because, by some studies, there's only about 12%, and that's like right on the number, 12% of Americans are metabolically healthy, completely metabolically healthy. We do the same thing. We kind of gauge it by person. Does everybody, need to be on a ketogenic diet? No, but number one, there's non-negotiable sodas, diet sodas, bread, milk. There's certain things that if you do those things, like you just said, processed refined carbohydrates, if you start with sugars, they feel better right away. Now, it's interesting to talk about women. They are. I use the word hormonal beasts. Like I tell patients, I said, y'all are just way different. We have to move you just a little bit this way and then a little bit this way, and the problem with keto or ketogenic or even paleo, any label you want to put on it, is, again, you're right. There's so many experts online, and it's like, what info do I go by? And everybody, number one, it's not cookie cutter. Everybody thinks, well, I'm on this less than 50 gram. I don't know what's going on. I've stopped losing weight. The answer is lower more carbs. And I'm like, you're already only having 4 carbs a day. That's not the answer. So, it takes, again, a very specific approach. Now, have you seen any success with specifically the ketogenic diet with any specific issues, like I said, PCO? I know there's a very intimate link between insulin resistance, and like PCOS specifically.
PCOS is easy. Mm-hmm. I have had huge success in my practice, getting patients pregnant, who were not ovulating, without having to use oral ovulation induction. So PCOS, we see improvements across the board, and that's been shown in the studies. A decrease in fasting insulins, reduction in triglycerides. It's reducing their risk of metabolic disease long term, as well as fixing a lot of their menstrual dysregularity. Other things that I've noticed. Major improvements in anxiety for a lot of patients. And I have a lot of patients who come in with headaches or migraines. I just had a patient today, significant reduction in headaches. She's only been doing it like 4 weeks. Those are kind of the fun ones, where people are like, I didn't realize my diet had such an impact on my reflux, my anxiety, my headaches, my psoriasis, some autoimmune conditions. So we definitely see those things when you start manipulating people's diets. It's pretty amazing, some of the improvements you can really see.
Now, what have you seen? Because here's the big thing, and I know personally speaking what it's done to my athletic performance. What have you seen the ketogenic diet, or your approach to the ketogenic diet personally for you, done for your athletic performance?
Yeah. So, that's of course one of the big scary things. People say, well, you're not, if you don't eat carbs, you're not gonna be able to gain muscle. You're not gonna be able to lift, hard in the gym. And of course that was kind of the old way of thinking. And I do think, to a point, that basically carbs should be used for performance, right? Baseline, activities of daily living. Like we don't need probably more than, in the range of 25 to maybe a big guy like you could handle, 50 or 75. But I think for the vast majority of people, they don't need carbs for their everyday life. But for athletic endeavors, carbs for performance, I think if you're doing something that's like super high intensity, you may have an argument for that. From a body composition standpoint, I have had the luxury of doing a lot of testing on myself and a lot of body composition testing. And basically in 365 days, when I first got back into the gym doing resistance training, I was able to put on about 9 pounds of muscle and lose 27 pounds of body fat, eating ketogenic.
Yeah.
I think like maybe a couple months in there, I was doing some targeted carbs, but vast majority of those months were ketogenic. And one of them was even like carnivore, which is 0 carbs. So, it was a pretty clear answer for me that you don't need carbs to gain muscle. I think, when you're in ketosis, it's pretty good at sparing your lean body mass. But I think the question was, could you really put on lean body mass? And I think that answer is yes. I've talked to a lot of other people who have DEXA scans to show it as well. And
that's what we have. That's what we have at ours.
Yeah,
is DEXA
I mean,
scan.
people don't want to believe it, but you have the data to show it.
We have the data to show it. Yeah.
Could you put on more muscle with carbs? Yeah, but you'd probably also put on body fat. I mean, that's the issue is like, for me, it was as a woman, I wanted to be lean, but I also wanted to be strong, and to do both those things at the same time is pretty incredible. Yeah,
it's very, very intricate. It's very, very nuanced. So I do believe in sometimes, depending on what the athletic endeavor is, doing targeted carbs, and there's even ways around. I recommend to some people, if they want to have like UCAN Superstarch. UCAN Superstarch was developed specifically not to spike your blood sugar too high and not to have a dip. So sometimes we can do that, before and after. But again, it just depends. I personally also have done DEXA scans. I have the luxury of having, thank God, a DEXA scan in the office, and I've seen, I do regular. It was actually part of my doctoral study too. We tracked patients' A1Cs, fasting blood sugars, and their DEXA scans, so their body fat composition, and all of them improved on the ketogenic diet versus people on usual care, which was medications, insulin, metformin, all these. So I want to keep this conversation going. We have to take a quick break for 2 minutes from our sponsors, and we will be right back, okay?
All right.
Turn on your glam today. The Jenna Klein collection is here, elaborated with natural products. Give yourself a compliment with our organic lip glosses in more than 15 shades. With the Jenna Klein lip gloss collection, you can hydrate your lips and keep that glamorous look that you need. Turn on your glam. Visit jennaklein.com. And don't forget our skincare collection with natural ingredients that will improve the skin's appearance and prevent visible signs of aging. We have everything you need to achieve smooth and vitalized skin. jennaklein.com. Turn on your glam today.
This was a proud sponsor of KNLY 91.1 FM.
Hello, my name is Dr. Sadaf Javed. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and I see adults also. I've been practicing in the greater Houston area for the past 5 years, and my practice is in the west side of town. In these unprecedented times, it is so important to check in with your mental health. Please pick up the phone and call 832-304-7244 or mycognitivepsychiatry.com, and we would be happy to help. Thank you.
This was a proud sponsor of KNLY 91.1 FM.
It started as a dream. When I was a little kid, I always wanted to have my own restaurant. And it was a dream that finally we had the opportunity to build it here in the Woodlands. And I'm so happy with it.
It's a really authentic Italian food. I try to maintain the most original possible. It's very important. Every day I make my fresh pasta.
Chi mangia bene, mangia italiano. Please come and visit us.
This was a proud sponsor of KNLY 91.1 FM.
And we're back. So wanted to keep this conversation going specifically on, the ketogenic diet, and especially on, especially with your background, because some of it is just actually just kind of, I want to pick your brain too. So, there's, and also give some great info to the listeners. So, there's a big controversy with ketogenic diet, especially for women, and, the ketogenic diet and your thyroid. Okay. There's this notion that basically it'll affect women's hormones, that the keto diet will destroy or ruin your hormones, that it'll destroy, your thyroid, or lower it, or low carb or calorie restriction, right? Will hurt the thyroid. Now, it's nuanced. So what is your take on that as far as ketogenic diet and like thyroid for women specifically?
Yeah, well, so you're right. So calorie restriction, just in general, across the board, if you restrict your calories, you're going to see a reduction in your thyroid hormone. And this is a protective mechanism of the body. The body is basically saying there's not enough nutrition out there. This is a time of, starvation. And so it will start to lower your metabolic rate to try to preserve what you have, right, in your body. So this is like normal physiology. So I think a lot of people, because a lot of people come into the ketogenic diet for weight loss purposes, a lot of people want to say, oh, see, look what happened with the thyroid. But if you reduce calories across any percent diet of, different macronutrients, you're going to see a reduction in thyroid. So, let's talk about two diets that are eukcaloric. Does the ketogenic diet have an impact on thyroid? And there's been lots of studies. Dr. Jeff Volek has probably done, the most studies where they've followed thyroid function in these patients. And I think Virta Health is following that data as well. But what we see, and what I see clinically too with patients, is we sometimes will see a reduction in the free T3 level. But I never see a rise in the TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone. And that's basically, telling me how hard is your pituitary gland working to stimulate the thyroid. And in somebody who's truly hypothyroid, I mean, this is a reflex system. So if the thyroid goes down, then it should start stimulating it more to put out more thyroid. And I don't see that clinically. And the patients don't have hypothyroidism symptoms. And so, there's a couple theories as to why this may happen. And I think probably one of the most believable ones is that just like we see an increase in insulin sensitivity, we may be seeing an increase in thyroid sensitivity.
Agreed. It takes less to elicit an effect. Because they don't have symptoms.
And, one of the hardest parts about testing people's serum is that, we're seeing what's in the blood, but we're not seeing what's at the level of the tissue. We're not seeing what the, actual tissue levels of free T3 are. And I just have never, ever seen a patient that I've, used ketogenic therapy who all of a sudden developed hypothyroidism. I've actually seen, quite the opposite, because insulin resistance and estrogen dominance in women is something that really drags on the thyroid. And, we see so much hypothyroidism. And a lot of times it has to do with underlying insulin resistance and metabolic disease. And so I have never clinically seen a problem with hypothyroidism. I myself had hypothyroidism after my first baby was born and was on levothyroxine for many years. And after I adopted a ketogenic diet, I decided to discontinue use of my medication and just to see what would happen with my thyroid. And my thyroid studies are completely normal. I have no symptoms. I feel great. And my levels have all, remained normal. So I don't agree with the argument that you need carbs for your thyroid. Is it individualized? Sure it is. There's some women that need more than others, but it's not a safe statement to just say you need carbs for your thyroid.
Exactly. The other one that we hear a lot about is ketogenic diet and cortisol. It's a notorious stress hormone, right? But if you go on a ketogenic diet, that it's very stressful. That's one of the complaints, from experts, quote unquote experts, that it really affects your cortisol. And so what do you see with that? Because I know what we see, but what do you see with that as far as a cortisol and ketogenic diet?
So once again, anything that is a deep calorie deficit, I mean, anything that cortisol is, people want to say that it's notoriously bad. We need cortisol. Cortisol is important. Cortisol is something in the body that, it stimulates gluconeogenesis and for good purpose. Cortisol is for sure related to your circadian rhythm. So if you want to talk about cortisol dysregulation, we need to talk about the horrible sleep and stimulants and caffeine use that people are using. I mean, you want to come after the ketogenic diet, you better be picketing the Starbucks line too.
Yes.
So, but it's interesting. I've heard this argument a lot. I've actually tested my own, I've done 24-hour free cortisol. I've looked at my cortisol awakening response. I mean, I've been ketogenic for like 5 years. I have totally normal cortisol levels. I think that it's not fair to just blame one particular thing, because it's multifactorial. With that being said, do I think that once people have fixed their insulin resistance, do they need to be in ketosis 365 days a year? I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing either. I personally kind of at this point right now, I've been, doing this so long, my A1C is 4.9. I kind of kind of transition in and out of like more of a carnivore approach to adding in, some more, I do some squash and sweet potatoes, and then I go back to more, ketosis for a while. I just kind of go in and out, and that's just how I feel the best and how I function the best. And I think it's also probably good because I think it kind of resets some of these nutrient sensing pathways. So I think people need to kind of step back and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Ketogenic diet's not going to ruin your organs. It's not going to burn out your adrenals and your thyroid.
Well,
I mean, there's
speaking of, the
people that have been doing this for 20 to 30 years.
Yeah, well, look at Dr. Ken Ford. He's been doing it since, he looks great, and he's been doing it since, he said he started when he was doing it for wrestling in, I think, the 60s. So, the ketogenic diet completely leaves the HPA axis unaltered or potentially actually improved. Then, cortisol, which, like you said, it's produced in the adrenal gland. Cortisol levels are actually low, believe it or not, in ketosis or completely unaffected. And so that's not something I see, but it's something, again, that you see on the internet with the experts and things. Now, going back real quick to caloric restriction, here's my thing on that, is that people talk about caloric restriction, but they were already eating way too many calories. So what are you talking about with caloric restriction? You have to be specific, because they'll say, well, I'm restricting calories, or, are you really on a calorie restrictive diet if you were eating 5,000 calories a day and then you go down to 2,000? It's not, again, it's not cookie cutter. So now
Right.
Going to any supplement, now do you specifically, you personally, or for patients, do you recommend any kind of specific supplements? Like I'm big about Dr. Mary Newport's MCT 143 or any number of couple of supplements that are on the market. But do you specifically use or recommend any kind of ketogenic support supplements?
Yeah. So I think across the board, especially in the world of like functional and integrative medicines, is that we over supplement people. It's not uncommon to have a patient come in and they bring in this bag and they're on like 20 different things. In the supplement industry, I mean, half the time it's like, do we really even know what's in here? Like, they're doubled up on things. So across the board, I'm not a fan of supplements, like, in general. I think that you should be able to eat the nutrients that you need. Like, we don't need supplements to survive. Like, how did our ancestors ever make it, right? But I think where supplements come in is, our food supply doesn't have the same nutrient content it used to. Nobody's perfect. You get stressed. You need extra magnesium. I think supplements are really good for filling the gaps. I have been using exogenous ketones off and on for the past 3 to 4 years. And I think that they definitely are a tool, especially for like keto adaptation. And dietary compliance. Athletic applications, I don't know. I think, the studies are happening and we'll see. And those are kind of fun to follow. MCT oil is a great supplement. It's very symbiotic with this lifestyle because it can help people get higher ketone levels. I've been doing this so long. When I test my ketone levels, it's not uncommon that, mine may register like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. And people will say, oh, well, you're not in ketosis, and it's like, I don't think we really know what the normal circadian rhythm is of ketones, because a lot of people don't really live this way, right? It's not data that we've followed. So I think MCT is great, especially for the brain benefits, especially for anybody that's older, that, prevention of dementia and Alzheimer's. And yeah, Mary Newport's work is just quite incredible. The other supplements that in Nebraska, because of geographically where we live, I do a lot of vitamin D supplementation. Because low vitamin D certainly contributes to insulin resistance and poor immune system function. And then magnesium is a big one that a lot of patients seem to just not get enough of in their diet.
This is what I told a friend of mine earlier in surgery, and I said, what, as an OB-GYN, a patient comes in, she's got, high blood pressure, what do we generally give? You give them mag citrate, when their blood pressure is out of control, and this, and the overwhelming majority of the population has magnesium deficiencies. But the first thing is, like, we go to, an amlodipine, or we go to a lisinopril, we go to a medication without even checking, filling in the basic gaps, right? So like, your magnesium, vitamin D, I've been harping on that for years and years and years, and primarily because it's a hormone, it's a steroid versus just a vitamin. I always stress that with patients because they hear vitamin D and they kind of blow it. Oh, I know he said it's a vitamin. I said, no, it's a steroid. It's a very potent steroid hormone. So yeah, and again, immune modulator. I mean, you could go on, but those are specific. And if you look at the population, they're very, very deficient in. So that's one, obviously, and again, I agree, filling in the gaps with multivitamin, multimineral, because the food just doesn't have what it used to. So even if you are eating clean, and again, nobody's perfect, it's hard to hit all the necessities. I personally, just like you, I'm a big proponent of exogenous ketones. I have used them, athletically, for many, many years. I can personally attest to the strength and the muscle maintenance with it. A few years ago, and this also kind of ties in, very, very, very passionate about type 2 diabetes. My dad passed away from it a few years ago, just unexpectedly. I had spoken to him that morning, and then in the afternoon, basically they just said, hey, we took your dad to the ER, he didn't make it. And I just kept saying over and over, like, my dad, and said, because I said I talked to him this morning, and it was just a massive heart attack. He didn't take his type 2 diabetes seriously. I always feel like if I had just preached to him more, if I just knew a little bit more, if I had, put him on a ketogenic diet, and, things like that. But like, with him, he kind of always blew it off. And it's kind of patients coming in also that, they'll say, hey, has anybody told you you're pre-diabetic? And oh yeah, they told me like 2 years ago. And they kind of, I'm like, no. So I tell people that telling them they're pre-diabetic is like telling them you're just a little bit pregnant. You either are or you're not. And I want them to not wait till it gets full blown. And then, so we start addressing it right away. As far as the ketogenic diet, I was using ketones, and when that happened and he passed away, it was the longest I had stepped away from the gym for, it was about to handle his affairs for about a month and a half. Just like I do, that you step away from the gym for just a couple of weeks, strength starts to decrease. First day I got back in the gym after not having lifted at all. And again, partly it was the rest and other things. I hit a PR or, a personal record on a front squat, like lifted more than I had lifted ever before. And I hadn't changed anything. I hadn't been training. The only thing I had been doing is maintaining my, ketogenic diet, taking exogenous ketones twice a day, MCT oils here and there. But again, that personally, I was already sold on them. I was really, really, really blown away. And as that's gone on, I've kind of played with things here and there, but exogenous ketones are part of my everyday, supplementation. Personally, I just again, like a multivitamin, fill in the gaps. But I'm like you, I'm cyclical. My cheat days are more, I'm sure, like yours. It's a day at True Food with like an Ancient Grains bowl with like, grass-fed beef and sweet potatoes or something, but still whole food. So I agree with you that the goal isn't to be ketogenic every day from now on, forever and ever, the rest of your life. It's to get back to metabolic flexibility, to where that way, if you do, get your blood sugar under control. You want to live a long time, you do two things. You prevent blood sugar spikes and you maintain a steady blood sugar. Well, I mean, personally, I believe that everybody should be on some spectrum of the ketogenic diet, whether that's closer to a paleo-ish, but again, getting rid of the crap. Now, agree, disagree, you've kind of mentioned it. Where's your stance on that as far as like for the general public?
Yeah, I mean, basically we're speaking to the 88% of America that doesn't have normal metabolic markers. I mean, immediately get rid of sugar, flour, industrial seed oils, and you're probably going to see your health improve. Now, if you want to be a little more targeted with your metabolic health, then let's look at what genetic susceptibilities. You said your dad was a diabetic. My dad was a diabetic too. I mean, I have all the genes. I mean, there will never be a time in my life where I get to eat 200, 300 carbs a day.
Yeah.
Like I will never be back there.
Yeah.
It's just the facts. But just eating a whole food diet, I mean, across the board. Now, the other thing is protein. And this is one thing I want to hit for anybody that's listening, talking about a ketogenic diet. The standard ketogenic diet was developed for children with epilepsy who need therapeutic ketosis or they will have seizures.
Yeah.
So the protein threshold on a diet like that is typically, 20%. Most of my patients, especially women, especially older women, benefit from a higher percent of calories from protein. And we are eating less protein now than we were 30 years ago. We're eating less beef than we were 30 years ago. And this is one thing that has just been so vilified, in the, social media world, is that like red meat causes cancer, and
totally terrible studies, observational epidemiological studies that are based on recall. I like to follow the work of Dr. Gabrielle Lyon a lot, doing muscle-centric medicine. She's really good. Rob and I did that show a couple of weeks ago on protein and prioritizing protein. And you're right. The classical ketogenic diet for epilepsy was a 90-8-2. That's for a very specific population. And again, that's not for the standard standard metabolically unhealthy population.
So
as we age,
most people need more protein and less fat than what standard ketogenic diet calls for.
Absolutely. We say prioritize protein, and then especially after 60, 65, push the threshold a little bit more. Well, so we're gonna go to one last commercial for a couple of minutes, and then we will finish up in about 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Dr. Javed. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist and I see adults also. I've been practicing in the greater Houston area for the past 5 years and my practice is in the west side of town. In these unprecedented times, it is so important to check in with your mental health. Please pick up the phone and call 832-304-7244 or mycognitivepsychiatry.com and we would be happy to help. Thank you.
This was a proud sponsor of KNLY.
Turn on your glam today. The Jenna Klein collection is here, elaborated with natural products. Give yourself a compliment with our organic lip glosses in more than 15 shades. With the Jenna Klein lip gloss collection, you can hydrate your lips and keep that glamorous look that you need. Turn on your glam. Visit jennaklein.com. And don't forget our skincare collection with natural ingredients that will improve the skin's appearance and prevent visible signs of aging. We have everything you need to achieve smooth and vitalized skin. jennaklein.com. Turn on your glam today.
This was a proud sponsor of KNLY 91.1 FM.
It started as a dream. When I was a little kid, I always wanted to have my own restaurant. And it was a dream that finally we had the opportunity to build it here in the Woodlands. And I'm so happy with it.
It's a really authentic Italian food. I try to maintain the most original possible. It's very important. Every day I make my fresh pasta.
Chi mangia bene, mangia italiano. Please come and visit us.
This was a proud sponsor of KNLY 91.1 FM.
All right, and we're back with Superhuman. We're just going to finish up, Dr. Jaime, and just basically want to see, kind of what's next for you. What do you have lined up? What are your athletic endeavors? What are your professional, endeavors? What do you have planned up?
Yeah, everybody wants to know what I'm going to do after Titan Games, but I don't know. There's some
Spartan game,
we'll
Spartans, there's a lot of things to do. So now, as far as your practice, are you going to shift, or are you going to, plan on shifting more towards, having two sides like a functional medicine, or is it just going to be all integrated into your practice with your patients?
Yeah. So currently it's all integrated. As an obstetrician, I work in an amazing practice where we have 10 doctors, and that really allows for my call schedule to be somewhat sustainable. And it allows me to have kind of this, business outside my practice, doing more consulting and speaking. So I love my group. I have no plans to leave here if I continue to do obstetrics, because delivering babies is quite demanding. But I have a nurse practitioner that works with me, and that's super helpful in my ability to see, more patients. I'm working on setting up telemedicine. There's a lot of logistics and legal stuff that hoops we're having to jump through. Practicing medicine across state lines, but I'm trying to set that up, because I currently have patients that actually fly in from all over the country, which I just think is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm just super humbled that they want to come see me and travel that far. But professionally, so Dr. Fit and Fabulous is my brand, and I speak internationally. I have, of course, with COVID, a lot of engagements that are kind of on pause right now. I am working on some books. I just started a new YouTube channel, we're trying to pump out a lot of content there. And
well, you kind of segued into my next question. So where can everybody find you as far as Facebook, internet, things like that?
Absolutely. I'm super active on social media, mostly on Instagram. So Dr. Fit and Fabulous on Instagram and Facebook. Okay. I do have some challenge groups that run like every 8 weeks, and it's super cheap and super affordable. And we do weekly Zooms, so people can watch out for the next sign up that's coming up in August. But I have a YouTube channel, Dr. Fit and Fabulous. I've got a website, drfitandfabulous.com. There you can, listen to any podcasts and things I've been on. And I love hearing people's stories. It's just absolutely incredible to watch patients really kind of take charge of their own health. And I don't think that ketogenic therapy is going anywhere, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the honor to be on this last keto summit with you. We had, I guess, day one, we were on the same day, and it was a virtual keto summit that Dr. Lisa Olszewski put together. So that can be, that can be accessed as well. But it was a lot of great speakers: JJ Virgin, you, myself, Dr. Heather Carden. I mean, there was a lot of really, really great info, from athletics to very, very specific issues. But I have to ask this because, I ask every patient, how have you been dealing with the whole, COVID era? What did it, do for your practice? How have you, had to change things? How are y'all doing up there?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good in Nebraska. So I just looked at our data yesterday. In Nebraska, we have a 6% hospitalization rate, and our death rate is still at about 0.5%. So we've really, across the country, we've done quite well. I'm very optimistic that as we, continue into the summer and into the fall, that things are going to go well. They've already announced our schools are going to reopen. Our hospital capacity has been fine. I mean, I feel for the people in Arizona and California and Florida. I mean, the numbers are still rising, but I think that what we really need to look at is the rate of severe illness and death, because as we test more people, we're going to get more positives.
Absolutely.
So
I think, and that's, what I constantly tell patients on a daily basis is, if you watch the news, if you watch anything, they're only highlighting the negative. They're only highlighting the number of cases rising, the number of, positive cases, the number, no emphasis is made on, hey, by the way, it has a 99.9% recovery rate. Hey, it so I think more, just to allay fears, I think more needs to be done to talk about the positives with it. Yes, for some it's a very devastating disease. I have a very good friend, Dr. Richard Harris, who is working frontline down in Houston at one of the hospitals. He says he says I've never seen something do what it's doing to some of these patients. But again, I think when it's all said and done, I think we're going to see there was a genetic predisposition for it to affect some more than others. Our immunity being compromised certain ways. Again, I think we were, and I've said this before, I think we were primed, unfortunately, for something like COVID to do us damage in the United States because of we're very metabolically unfit, because our immune system is down, because we have a 70% overweight and obesity rate, and 60% of people have a comorbidity, so glad y'all are doing well up there. Go ahead.
You can't hide from viruses. I mean,
No.
you can't hide from viruses. If it's not COVID, there's something else that's going to come around.
H1N1 is apparently on the rise. So
control the controllables.
Yep.
Control what you can control, and that's taking care of your health from the inside out.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we're about to sign off. Man, this has been awesome. I will send you the link and we will repost. And again, if y'all want to, get in touch with Dr. Jaime Seeman, we have her info. We will repost that. And if y'all want to come see me here locally, we're at Core Sports Health in Conroe. And we do everything there from functional medicine to ketogenic diet to dietary nutrition to just overall health and wellness. And super happy that you're following that, because it takes a personal view or a personal approach of saying, hey, our current system is not working. We need a change. That's what it takes. And that's the only thing that's going to take our trajectory, which is pretty bad, regarding chronic disease in the United States. Well, worldwide, but in the United States. So it's been awesome talking to you. Do you have any parting words or anything before we sign off?
No, I appreciate this opportunity. And my motto for people is pay yourself first. So, I'm a busy mom, I'm a doctor, but if I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of other people.
Awesome. Great words. Well, it was awesome having you. We'll talk again. And for sure, I'm so glad we were able to get you on. It worked out. We will have you back on the show to talk about other topics, but take care, and we will see you soon. See y'all next week.
All right.
You're listening to KNLY, New Waverly, Texas, 91.1 FM.